Hi, my name is Jeremy Kingston, and I am here for Harry Tarantula, giving you a quick review about the year of 2018 with Star Wars Destiny. It was Star Wars Destiny's most ambitious year, as we saw 3 sets released with Legacies, Way of the Force, Across the Galaxy, and spoilers for 4th set Convergence. In addition, and most importantly, we saw the release of the Rivals Draft Set. This is very important for the future of Star Wars Destiny, as any card game is only as good as its limited environment in order to bring in new people. Sealed deck, built from a box, and most importantly, a Rivals Draft Set. Rivals Draft Set is Star Wars Destiny's first attempt at a limited environment, which is the lifeblood of any collectible card game. The better your limited environment, the quicker you can build your collection and increase your fun and play value for the least amount of money. This is so important for the game going forward. I can't stress this enough. 2018 also saw the second World Championships for Star Wars Destiny, with 330 people registering for the main event. This is down from the 400 people that played in the North American finals. So you have to ask yourself, what's going on there with less players at the Worlds than there were in just one region? Now, you could make the argument that draft, build from a box, and side events might have taken away from the event, but why weren't the players interested in playing for the Worlds, for the finals? I'm going to talk to you today about the 5 major problems that Star Wars Destiny needs to address in 2019. Number 5, peripherals. Star Wars Destiny is a very interesting game in that it involves both cards and dice. This also provides quite a challenge for collectors and players in order to move their cards and decks around in an efficient and safe way. Star Wars Destiny is, of course, made by Fantasy Flight Games, and they've only released a single peripheral in the last 2 years, and that is, of course, the Star Wars Destiny dice binders. These are fantastic for carrying almost the deck around in a binder-shaped format, but that's not going to work for everybody, especially if you have multiple decks. The binders will stack up, and your bag will get filled really quickly. The deck boxes are completely missing from this line of products. The deck boxes that I use are the Dex Supreme chests, and they're very hard to keep in stock. However, I find that they're very effective keeping 2 decks together in their supreme size. Fantasy Flight has no competing alternative, and the major players in the supply game, Ultimate Guard and Ultra Pro, are offering nothing at this time. With sleeves, Fantasy Flight has a fantastic line of limited edition art sleeves that they brought out in 2016 and earlier. In 2017, Fantasy Flight brought out sleeves for Star Wars Force Awakens. So you've got your Kylo Ren, your BB-8, Rey, and action scene. However, there's been nothing since then. We're trying to get to more sleeves in there, but they're not forthcoming with those either. And quite frankly, the limited edition art sleeves, while they are beautiful, they aren't very durable and aren't good for heavy shuffling or repeated play. If you look at the footage of the 2018 World Championships, you'll notice that almost none of the players are featuring these really lovely sleeves. Okay, number 4, holocrons. Now, in the words of lead designer Jeremy Warren, this is the most elegant way they can find to fix a very major glaring problem, and that is that Star Wars Destiny cards have very oblique, hard to read, difficult to interpret text on a lot of their cards. Most importantly, cards like Coercion, more recent sets, Snoke, and the other cards that cause infinite loops. Things like this need to be addressed in playtesting. However, what we get instead are these PDF files which you download from Fantasy Flight Games in order to correct play and help tournament organizers and players figure out how their cards work. This is an issue that needs to be addressed immediately. Playtesting is supposed to be done before a set is released, not by the player base. And cards like Coercion, which are intentionally oblique and difficult to read, these are things that need to be stamped out of the game. Coercion should read, the player gets to do a thing, or pass. Just saying Coercion, do a thing, full stop, leads to arguments. And this is just one example of dozens. I can keep going with lists of cards, but that's just the one that has personally affected me in my tournament play, in my experiences. Most of Holocron is now spent addressing things like infinite loops and things like that, but the one that hits the players the hardest is when they take a point total and they change it. The most recent, of course, is Snoke. Now, Snoke needed to be addressed. He was 48% of the competitive field in the most recent batch of regionals, where he was unchanged, and he was 73% of the winning decks. Now, of course, that is something that probably could have been tested a little further in playtesting, but after the fact, to artificially change the point value makes it a very difficult conversation for store employees or for players trying to bring in new players, saying, "Oh, this guy's great," or "This character's great," but he doesn't read that. He now reads this, or she now reads this. Number 3, prize support. So Fantasy Flight has introduced a fantastic system of store kits and store tournament kits. The store kits are purchased months in advance, feature promos either in English or in Orabesh, and have the limited edition Star Wars plastic counters for resources, shields, and damage. These are fantastic. However, they're in very limited supply. So, of course, the players who win the tournament get the plastic counters, and everyone who shows up gets the Orabesh common. It's a little bit strain on the player base, because if you have your Snoke deck, or if you have a very powerful meta deck, then you're going to end up crushing and getting a whole bunch of plastic counters. Now, this is fine. It makes it a little more rare, a little more scarce, and that's Fantasy Flight's strategy. But it doesn't support week in, week out play. Once you've won your shield counters, you don't need to win another shield counter. So you're less incentivized to come back and play competitively, win the shield counters. And once you've got your playset of Orabesh commons, you don't need to come back for more targeting computers. They need to bring out more diverse cards so that it can set it up for, instead of 4 weeks of play, 8 weeks of play, or even 12 weeks of play. Because the current schedule is a set comes out every 3 to 4 months. They need to plan for that with their organized play kits, or it's just not worth it. In terms of the store kits, you get a playmat and a foil card, or a specially altered card, I should say, and again, more of the counters and the promo cards. These are fantastic, but there's only one per store per season. That needs to change immediately. I think that these should be at least available once every month in order to get more distribution of these fantastic prizes for their players. We spoke briefly about scheduling before. The sets being scheduled every 3 or 4 months is great. However, it's been very irregular. As you saw in 2018, we had 5 releases total, counting the Rivals draft set and the 2-player starter. What was scheduled in 2019? We don't know. Only Convergence is out, and now, at the time of the shooting of this video, rumors of a new draft set. I can't tell you how excited I am about a new draft set, but where is the information? How are we supposed to tell this? How are we supposed to spread this to the player base? How are new players supposed to get other players or returning players back into the game with rumors? The information needs to be disseminated ahead of time, at least a year in advance. We need to see what's happening in the next year. We know that there's going to be some sets. We know there might be a draft set, but that's not enough information to get new players or returning players coming back to the game interested if all we have are rumors and conjecture. Tournaments and formats are spaced out in such a way that we're not sure what format's going to be played, as you saw in late 2017 with the release of Empire War. We didn't know until the last minute whether that set would be legal for the Canadian Nationals. Now, it ended up being legal, which was great, but that only gave the players a couple of weeks to play test for a very important national level tournament. This has got to stop. If you're going to take the game seriously, then you need to have, again, a scheduled release of your cards and a scheduled release of your tournaments and what format is legal. Since Star Wars Destiny has had the foresight to announce 3 separate formats, which allows for the play of all the cards, the most recent 2 cycles of cards, and just the most recent cycle of cards, they have all the tools. They just need to put it together in a package that they can present to their players in a way that makes sense. Worlds. World Championship should mean something. If it's going to be only 330 people, make sure those 330 people qualified. Maybe it was invitational only. Maybe it has to be something like you win a certain amount of points by showing up to your tournament at your local store every week. Not only does that support the local level in the stores and the community, it also makes Worlds more important. It gives you something to build towards. There are millions of people that play this game worldwide, and sales represent that. So it's time to start addressing it like a real game and giving it a real goal to achieve every year. The number one issue with Star Wars Destiny is simply this: cannibalism. Every year, Fantasy Flight introduces a new IP or builds on another popular IP and steals its own crowd away from the most recent game. Star Wars Destiny was the hit of 2017, selling out everywhere and being massively important to both Star Wars fans and to people who are interested in an alternative to the current TCG environment. 2017 saw L5R and 2018 saw Keyforge. So once again, we're on this very difficult position. We're trying to sell our players and the community at large that Star Wars Destiny is here and here to stay. But at the same time, here's another brand new game that's fitted in the same spot with the same format and the same pricing, and basically is targeted at the exact same players. So now the players have to make a decision in mind. Do they want to play the old dusty game that's coming out once every 4 months, or do they want to try the new guy? And the new character is bright. It's got Richard Garfield's stamp on it. It's a pretty fun game. And there is the problem. Every time a new game comes out that's fun, It's just cannibalizing the crew from Star Wars Destiny, making Star Wars Destiny less important in the eyes of the players because the company has said so. With Star Wars Destiny, this is a collectible card game. If you can't collect the cards that you need, then it's pretty hard to play. The current meta is almost 1/3 of all players, or around 38%. Darth Vader's third edition, A Terror to Behold, with Greedo. Darth Vader is sold out on every major online store, including Harry Tarantula currently. And so if you wanted to play the top deck in the environment, you're left cracking packs. Well, that's fine as long as the packs are available. What if the packs sell out, like they did with Empire at War and Awakenings, and for short time Legacies? When you have a set and it's in stock and people are driven to open the packs, that's great. But the secondary market, with most people trying to sell the game in order to jump into Keyforge or L5R or Magic or any other games, we have an issue. The issue is the demand is high, but the supply is low. And this is exactly what Fantasy Flight is aiming for. This is not the way to run a collectible card game. If you have a game and you want it to grow, you need to publish the cards. You need to have them in the hands of the players, preferably in a limited format so they can draft and get some fun out of cracking packs. And then the stores can be incentivized to have the singles so that there is a secondhand market and people are buying and trading their cards to the stores. If it's not working like that, then you have basically a faulty product. Which leads me to my conclusion, which is that Fantasy Flight Games needs to stop thinking like a board game company, start thinking like a card company. They need to start thinking about the future of their game in 12-month blocks. They need to start play testing. They need to stop trying to drop new games on top of Star Wars Destiny. Let Star Wars Destiny have its time. Keyforge is great, L5R is great, and you could argue that they're not the same crew, but really when you think about it, there's only so many players to go around that aren't playing Magic, and if you want to attract Magic players to your game, then you're going to need to have some kind of system, some kind of support, so that professional card players can look at this game and say, hey, this is a well-run, well-organized game, and it's kind of fun, that's great, and appeal to the casual players too, so that they can dip between the 3 different options or 4 different options, not just cater to the casual markets. It's not a good way to run your game. Thanks once again. I'm Jeremy Kingston, and this has been Harry Tarantula signing off.